I feel a bit sorry for William and Kate really being put in this position. Demands for reparations and a whole narrative here that Meghan and Harry have helped to create. I mean, of that there is no doubt at all. But I tell you what gets me down about this. It is the feeling amongst so many commentators in the UK that somehow slavery is a uniquely British thing. We were the only people in the world,
wait for it,
that ever did it. White British people enslaved black people and sent them across to the Caribbean and the Americas. Now look, none of us today think what happened those centuries back was a good thing. We even don't think public executions are a good thing. There are so many things that happened years ago that we wouldn't, approve of in any way at all. But the thought we should pay reparations, well, hold on a minute.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Because there was something called the Barbary Pirates. Now, I know that any young people watching this won't know, because they won't have been taught this at all through our education system. But a recent report from Ohio University in America suggests that up to 1.25 million people from Sicily right up the west coast of Spain and France and into Cornwall, getting back to your previous debate that you had before the break, Wales, Ireland, 1.25 million white slaves were taken by North Africans from countries that we now know as Algeria and Libya. And by the way, folks, it wasn't just the Brits doing slave trade. The rest of Europe were doing slave trade. So let's get a sense of perspective. And what's really brought all this on for me isn't just the royal visit to Jamaica. It's Tulse Hill in South London. Now, I was at school at
Nice.
a mile up the road. They're going to rename Tulse Hill. They're going to cancel Tulse Hill. They're going to get rid of dozens of road names. I've got to be honest with you. I've known Tulse Hill for over 50 years. I didn't know. I'm an ignorant.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
I didn't even know it was based on a guy called Sir William Tulse, who made his money, out of the slave trade. But we can't go on pretending this is a purely British, a purely white thing. We need some sense of perspective and balance in this argument. And above all, what we should say is whatever was wrong in the past, it was the British that first realised what a moral wrong it was, abolished it,
Fact.
and then spent decades on the high seas driving out the slave trade at the cost of thousands of Royal Navy sailors' lives. So please, folks, can we have a sense of perspective? And if reparations
wait for it,
are to be paid, well, Libya, Egypt, Algeria, you owe us a huge amount of money. And the Cornish will be very, very pleased. They won't even need Gordon Ramsay anymore.
But it would never end. I mean, it was interesting, Nigel. Dominic Samuel's on our Superstar panel tonight. She is a Brit with Jamaican heritage. And she said her concern about this, and I found it fascinating, actually, is that the current government of Jamaica is wanting to wall...
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
...paper all of the social problems, all of the other issues in their society today by focusing on this historic issue of reparations. And I think she's right, because actually the Jamaican Prime Minister should be thinking a bit more about how to turn his country around.
Yes, I mean, if the Jamaican Prime Minister wants to continue with this narrative of what he sees as being historic wrongs, and they probably are in many ways, that is giving victimhood status to an entire country.
Yeah.
And that of itself is a very negative emotion. Tell someone they're a victim and they'll feel down. Tell someone they're a champion and they can overcome things and succeed in the future. And you know what? They might just do very, very well. So I find the whole thing a
wait for it,
negative narrative. But there's something bigger going on here, and it's not being commented on, Dan, but I'm going to mention it now very briefly, and we'll come back to it in the weeks to come. Take Barbados. Barbados recently got rid of the Queen as head of state. Why? Well, China is the answer. China are doing their best through loans, money and investments to break the British link with the Commonwealth. It's happening. We've seen it with the Chagos Islands and that row that's going on there. We've seen it in Barbados. Jamaica, I don't think China's the influence there, but there is a big attempt out there to downgrade the English-speaking peoples of the world and this remarkable alliance. And there are lots and lots of people in Jamaica whose granddads flew in Bomber Command in World War II. There is an amazing link between our nations, and it's being poisoned by many, many people. And that is a terrible shame.
Very good point. Very good point. Nigel, I just want to come back to this idea that's been propagated by the left-wing media, by BLM in particular, that the British royal family is racist. And yes, I did get a lot of criticism today because I blamed Meghan Markle for some of this, not for all of it, but for some of it. And I stand by that, Nigel, because her interview with Oprah Winfrey is being used by some of the main activists for reparations and a republic in Jamaica right now. But what I found particularly unsavoury, Nigel, was the fact that the BLM movement tried to use this picture of William and Kate greeting fans behind a wire fence when Raheem Sterling had done exactly the same thing a few moments earlier and no one mentioned it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well, look, you know, the contradictions, the untruths of Meghan Markle know no bounds. And the fact that Prince Harry himself is happy for his family to suffer some of the injustice that comes from this, the injustice that comes from this, is so wrong. But the truth of it is, as you can see, Kate and Wills are becoming global megastars. One dares to say Kate more than Wills.
That doesn't make sense.
Somewhat reminiscent of what was going on 40 years ago with his father and with Diana. But I think we should all be very pleased and very proud that out there on the world stage, we've got a couple like this doing us such great credit. And you know, with the Queen now being effectively confined to barracks in Windsor, we need to recognise that the royal family are the most important part of soft power that we have in this world. The Commonwealth now has within it 2.3 billion people. Add to that over 300 Americans who seem to love the royal family even more than we do, and you realise just how important the monarchy is to us, our presence, our soft power in the world, and especially in post-Brexit Britain, it matters even more. And that makes, frankly, what Meghan and Harry have done nothing but totally despicable.
I agree, and I think they will lose. I think this narrative that the British royal family is racist has been pushed by the far left extremists in the US media, but actually you're completely right. Even loads of Republicans, Nigel, in Jamaica absolutely adored William and Kate. There are about 60 protesters outside the British High Commission. It's just the fact that the media who are in
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
in the tank for Harry and Meghan in the US are trying to create a particular narrative. And I think they will lose, but we have to expose it.
Well, look, you know, the media, the mainstream media, and that
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
includes a very large chunk of the British media, have always been ashamed of this country, of its standing, of its history, of its status, of its royal family, of its individuality, of its uniqueness. It's why they wanted us all to be parcelled and packaged up into a wonderful new European project run by bureaucrats we couldn't vote for, couldn't remove, and who were generally kicked out political failures for their own countries, such as Belgium. So look, there's nothing surprising in any of this. And I mean, look at Belize. The truth of it is, the Belize trip from the couple this week was a huge success. Half a dozen people turn up with placards and protest. And you would have thought the whole of Belize were in uproar. Uproar at the fact that the royal family had visited. I mean, Barbados, who got rid of the Queen as head of state, without a referendum, did it without reference to anybody. And opinion polls show, actually, a majority of Barbadians
That doesn't make sense.
wish that hadn't happened. So never be surprised that mainstream media wants to destroy our image, our reputation, our legacy, and our future. Do you know what? They don't like the country. They're embarrassed by us. And George Orwell got it so right in the late 1940s when he said, there's a certain type of Englishman who would rather steal from the poor box in church on a Sunday morning than stand for the national anthem. They're still there. They still exist. But the Brexit vote proved that the silent majority are sound, decent, upright, honest, patriotic people. And I believe in increasing numbers, they can become fans of GB News too.
To give that up.
What do you mean by that?
For Willie, it was pure agony to wear the same blazer, the same tight shorts as me. And now to attend the same school was pure murder.
What?
I told him not to worry. I'll forget I ever knew you. Pure murder. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine that taking place? Siblings saying, hey, don't even talk to me in school. Oh, I bet you could imagine, because this happens in every household.
Fact.
I actually had the unique scenario where me and my two sisters, because we were all exactly a year and a half apart, all three of us went to the same high school at the exact same time. And of course, we were trying to forge our own existences. We did not want to hang out with each other. We would yell at each other if we wore the same shirt, the same color. We would pull up at school, and I would look at my little sister and be like, don't even look at me today. Don't even look at me if you see me in the hallway. Stop hanging out with the same people as me. I remember, and I'm just coming out with this now because God forbid my little sister writes a book, and it's called Spare, and she talks about the trauma that I put her through. I did this, I want to come clean. When Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera were both dropping their music in the 2000s, I told my sister that she had to pick whether or not she was Team Christina or Team Britney.
That doesn't make sense.
And she said she liked both of their music, and I told her she had to pick, and she picked Britney, and I told her that she wasn't allowed to listen to Christina Aguilera's music or hang out with anybody that liked Christina Aguilera like I did.
What?
So I guess that was a childhood trauma, and it is worthy of $25 million to put into a book about awful treatment. I mean, how absolutely normal is it that Willie does not want to hang out with his little brother in school when he's around him all the time? How absolutely normal that he doesn't want to wear the same clothes. Not if you are Prince Harry. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because this is what happened one time when they were at Eton together. Basically, he goes and he recounts the story about how one of his mates, Harry's mates, completely not related at all to Willie, convinced him to shave off his hair. Right? And so Harry cuts his hair, and the haircut looks really bad. And he starts freaking out and realizes that he's made a big mistake. And all of his mates are screaming and howling in laughter, like, ah, ha, ha, you just shaved your head. You can picture this, because that's how the lads are. It's all the lads do. The boys make fun of each other. They're like, ha, ha, this is hilarious.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
So Harold goes up to Willie's room, and he finds him. And when Willie sees the haircut that Harry has given to himself, because, he can never take responsibility for anything he's done. It's always somehow Willie's fault. Willie laughs, just like all the other lads had laughed, because apparently it was a ridiculous haircut that he gave to himself. Now, here's the conversation that he's having with himself. I was just hoping that Willie would tell me that it would be okay. Don't freak out. Keep calm, Harold. Instead, he laughed like the others.
Stop it. Get some help.
I recall him sitting at his desk, bent over a book, chuckling, while I stood before him, fingering the nubs on my newly bare scalp. Harold, what have you done? What a question. He sounded like Stewie from Family Guy. Wasn't it obvious? You shouldn't have done it, Harold. So we're just stating the obvious now? He said a few more things that were immensely unhelpful, and I walked out. I think he's like 40 years old today. He actually thought it was a good idea to put this into the book because it's supposed to make us understand how traumatizing his life was because he shaved off his own head and to make his mates laugh. And then when his brother laughed, it was a trauma because his brother was supposed to hold him and say, it's okay that you did this stupid thing. It's now somehow William's fault for not doing that. This is how this book goes on and on and on. Boring. Whatever Harry does, it's somebody else's fault, right? Harry can make no mistakes. Remember, notoriously, he says that he wore the Nazi costume to a party, but also that Will and Kate laughed at it. So he wants to share the blame in something that was so clearly his own decision-making. I am the one, the way your son don't get. But this is, I guess, we're supposed to feel sad for him. All right, guys, the next portion of the show is going to be available exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. I'm going to be answering, am I the asshole questions from Reddit.
Okay.
Thread on Reddit where people talk about what's going on in their personal lives and they ask the public, is it me? Am I the a-hole? So if you're not a member yet, go ahead and click the link in the description and subscribe right now.